Yes, Pinto.
Yes,
Sanjay Pinto.
Hi. If you're one of those bank customers who've been getting these regular KYC, Know Your Customer demands from banks, this video is for you. Many banks seem to be on a perennial KYC, Know Your Customer spree. They've been shooting off notices demanding officially valid documents. This is a requirement laid down by the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, through its Master Direction 2016 that was updated in 2021. The RBI draws its powers from Section 35A of the Banking Regulation Act 1949 and Rule 9 subsection 14 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Maintenance of Records Rules 2005. Under Clause 12 of the RBI direction, customers are categorized as low, medium and high risk. Low, medium and high risk. Clause 38 stipulates that periodic updating shall be carried out at least, and this is very important, once every 2 years for high risk customers, every 8 years for medium risk customers, and every 10 years for low risk customers, which means for many people like you and me, only every 10 years should this exercise be conducted. Now, I'd like to ask the RBI a simple question. Are bank customers like cholesterol to be treated as high, medium and low risk? What if a customer has no loans, no overdraft, no credit card, almost 100% CIBIL score? How do they pose any risk to the bank? Their money is with the bank fetching peanuts as interest. So there ought to be, and I'm making an appeal to the RBI through this video, there ought to be a no risk category as opposed to low risk for these customers. Because the risk is to such customers and the risk is from the bank, not the other way around. A demand for KYC documents within 2 years from your last compliance may imply that you are, as I said earlier, probably bracketed as a high risk customer as your transactions have been flagged as suspicious. These are defined under Clause 3, Subclause 9 of the RBI direction as transactions involving proceeds of money, money laundering, regardless of the value involved, or appear to be made in circumstances of unusual or unjustified complexity without economic rationale or bona fide purpose, or those that give rise to a reasonable ground of suspicion that they may involve financing of terrorism. There is also a provision under Clause 10 for ongoing due diligence requiring regular monitoring of transactions in these accounts. Under Clause 13, banks are required to undertake identification of customers who carry out international money transfers for non-account holders, or when customers intentionally structure transactions into a series below the threshold of rupees 50,000. By all means, let banks, let the RBI, let all the agencies involved place these accounts under scrutiny and demand the highest compliance. But my issue is with low risk or no risk customers who are being needlessly harassed periodically by banks. Non-compliance can result in partial freezing or closure of accounts under Clause 39 after notices are issued. Banks, and let's face it, banks usually do not normally issue acknowledgements for submission of KYC documents. You will bear me out on this. Unless you insist on a seal, signature and date on copies of such communication, chances are that you may not have any record of your compliance. Now, when a bank gives you even a slip of paper such as a simple receipt for a fixed deposit, they bring out big ledgers to get your signature. Most of the bank's communication to customers is undated and unsigned with a disclaimer that it is computer generated and requires no signature. All this for a notice that has severe consequences for non-compliance. The KYC norms, in my opinion, are fundamentally flawed. One of the documents periodically insisted upon are PAN cards. By its very nature, it is a permanent account number and requires no updating because it does not change. That's the meaning of permanent. It does not change. Moreover, when banks deduct tax at source for payment of interest, isn't that proof enough that PAN details exist in a particular account? There are cases where, despite successfully linking the controversial Aadhaar number with the account online, some nationalized banks still send out notices demanding urgent submission of KYC details. Now, such practices, I feel, constitute deficiency in service, which is actionable under Section 2, subsection 11 of the Consumer Protection Act 2019, making banks liable for compensation for harassment and causing mental agony to customers. The RBI direction has provisions to avoid unnecessary inconvenience to customers. How often is this followed? How often is this bit selectively, not adhered to? Under clause 38, fresh proof of identity and address shall not be sought for periodic updating from low risk customers where there is no change in details. In fact, even in our latest 2023 advisory to banks, RBI has reiterated this. Full credit to RBI for this, but then is it being monitored that banks are actually following these directives? Such documents where there is no change can be sent by email or post and shall be acceptable, and the physical presence of low risk customers must not be insisted upon. This is not followed in many cases as far as I know. Moreover, how often are mails or letters acknowledged by banks? Fresh photographs are only required when the customers were minors while opening the accounts and on their attaining majority. eKYC using OTP based authentication, remember this is Digital India, for periodic updating is allowed if the customer was subject to the KYC process while opening the account. KYC, shouldn't ideally it be restricted, should it be restricted only to a bunch of documents? Do banks really know their customers? Do they know their financial standing? Do they know their requirements? And don't forget, there's a farce called relationship managers. Contrary to a legitimate expectation and belief, there is nothing personalized here, as many of these officers don't have your numbers on their speed dial, as each one is assigned to a few hundred customers. Okay. Don't forget that, a few hundred customers. And why shouldn't this cut both ways? Why can't RBI instruct banks to send customers periodic Know Your Bank forms, KYB? They're talking about KYC. Let's have KYB, Know Your Bank forms from these banks periodically. Shouldn't customers know about their non-performing assets? Shouldn't customers know about the time taken for transactions, the details of cases pending in consumer fora and DRT and DRAT, the debt recovery tribunals? Let customers also be empowered to categorize banks as low, medium and high risk. How about that?